Okay, I'm gonna do a breakdown on M4. Now this is basically for beginner players just starting out doing tech work on their own stuff. I'm not doing this for experienced players or nothing like that. Well, some experienced players don't know how to go into gearboxes and what the parts are called and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go through. I'm going to pull this apart. I'm going to just go through the parts, what they are and stuff like that, just to give the new players, new techs, kind of a heads up on what's what and what does what, and see how we go from there. As I say, if you're a tech and you know all your stuff, then there's no need to be watching this video, is there? Right, first off, you won't have a stock like this on most M4s. It'll come with a tube and then your stock attached to the tube. So what you do there is you take the stock off by pulling the bottom latch and pull the stock off. Then there'll be a screw down your buffer tube, stock tube, and you put a long screwdriver down, unscrew that screw, take the tube off. That'll be your first, unless you have a stock tube that screws into the body. On Noveski M4 they have the stock tube that screws into the body, so you must take the gearbox out first. Right, all I'm doing here is I'm doing this screw. It's a big long screw that holds this stock onto this body. These are the M16 style stocks. This is a short. You get the longer ones. Now, see, there's a screw. There's no need to take that out. That's the first step. Now, this is a quick change spring system. It's a Spectre Arms Core Series replica. Now, just in here, right there, you put something in there and take the spring out. So what I have is maybe one of these might fit. Yeah, that fits there. Screwdriver. There we go. Now, there's your spring, and this is your spring guide. Now this one doesn't have no bearings on it. Bearings normally just sit at the back there. Now this would be a Dean's connector. The other one they normally come with is Tamiya connectors. Now next step is to take the upper off. Find the right head. Push your pin through the opposite side. Now this will be your body, front body pin. Slide it off like that, and this will catch just on top of the gearbox. So if you pull this back, kind of lift it up a touch at the back, push forward. Now I'll set that aside a second. Now in here you will have a mock bolt, but I've removed it on this. Now in here you have your barrel, your hop unit and your bucking, and that will sit inside on your barrel, on your hop unit, and then your nub sits in the arm. And these then will be a spring to push this back to the gearbox. One spring will normally come on AGs out of the box. I've added this spring just to give it that little bit more. Now in here you have your charging handle arm that flicks the dust cover open. You have your charging handle spring, it's just down in there. So if you pull this really far back, you can damage the spring. But if that happens and the spring's just damaged on one end, you can just clip it and reattach it. So that's that. That's your front handguard. Your inner barrel will be in there then. So that's the upper. Now the lower, you have your pistol grip, you have your selector switch. This is a mock bolt release, doesn't do nothing, but you will get some that will have a working bolt release, and the inner bolt will stay back until you hit this release and then it will go forward. Now you have your mag release there, your back body pin, your center body pin, center gearbox pin, shall I say it. Here you have your base plate, what holds the motor in your grip, 2 screws either side. This is your adjustment screw for the motor height up and down. If you get a bad noise out of your motor, you can adjust that screw to put it up and down. Now I need a Phillips head for that, to take them 2 screws out. Just them screws out. Now you have 2 wires for the motor. On this it's red at the back, black at the front, or it could be switched around, so the red will be at the front on standard and the black will be at the back. So you just pop them wires off gently. And pop your motor out. This will be your motor then. This is your pinion gear on your motor. You get 2 types. You get a D type where it just looks like a D, and then kind of an O type. And D type will have a grub screw just in there that holds the pinion on. This is your spring then for the motor, for your tower there. Inside you have 2 screws. Now the screws will vary which side they are. Now 2 screws in there, just take them out, pull your wires through. That's your pistol grip. Back body pin, push that through. Other side, pull that out. Center body pin, and then you have your mag catch. So Phillips again. So that's your mag catch button. Then you'll have a spring just inside here. There's your spring. Now if you lose that spring, hand soap dispenser bottles, you'll be able to pull a spring out of there. And this is your mag catch then. This catches in a window of the mag, a little square window. Then you're left with the center body pin. There you go, and it's a little detent kind of piece on that to hold it in place. You can see just the length of it there. Now your gearbox just pop out like that, and then you have this can come out. You can leave that in or take it out if you want, and don't put it back in. It's up to you. It just doesn't do nothing. Now this is your lower receiver. Now your gearbox is out. Now first off, even though the spring is out, I'd pull the anti-reversal latch out of that. Right, you'll have tension here. You can see the nozzle isn't pushing back, so there's tension on that. So some will have a cut out here. Pull the anti-reversal latch, and you see it's released. Now next, your screws. I do believe these are star heads. Find the right one. There we go. Now 9 screws in this altogether. Now that's all the screws out. Now there shouldn't be any tension on this, but you will have shims on the gears. So when you're lifting this off, just do it carefully and don't lose no shims. There's none on there, none on there. One of the bearings has come off there and stuck to the gear. So it just checks any shims on it, and there is. Pop that back in. Shim back on the gear it came off. Now gently take the gears out. As you can see, another bearing there has come off. There's no shim stuck to it, so just pop the bearing back in. Now this gear will be your bevel gear, that the motor sits like this and the motor turns that gear there, which then that gear will turn your spur gear, and then your spur gear will turn the sector gear, which turns and pulls back your piston. Now just in here you have a little spring, just pop that off, and then your compression parts will come out. And then you can take this gear off, check for any shims. No shims there, they're all attached to it. Now this will be your sector gear and your sector gear teeth. Now when someone talks about short stroking, this gear will have a few more teeth. As you can see, I've short stroked this already by a few teeth, about 3 teeth. So that means you cut the teeth off on the pickup side, so when it's picking up the piston. Now that'll pick up the piston just in there, so you cut these teeth off here at the front. So that's your sector gear, sector gear, and then that's your delayer chip there, if you hear that coming up in conversation. Now this will be your spur gear. As you can see, bearing off that as well. Check for any shims. Just keep the shims where they are. Spur gear lower and your higher part, which just catches in there. Now this here is your anti-reversal latch with a little spring on. That catches these teeth in here just at the base of it, and that stops the gears from rotating backwards. So it stops it spinning the opposite direction. Right, here you have your piston. This is your piston body, and this is your rack with your teeth in it. This is a metal rack. You get them with plastic, so if you get them with plastic, change them out for a metal rack. And this is your piston head. It's just polymer piston head. You get them in metal, and then your piston o-ring just goes around that right there. Now this tube is your cylinder, and then you have your cylinder head. There you go, it's your cylinder. Now this is set for the volume of this replica. You get some without the hole. They're for kind of higher power. Now on here you have your pad, cylinder pad, and then this is a double o-ring cylinder head. Now here you have your air nozzle, and inside there, when you hear the term o-ring nozzle, this is what it means. There's an o-ring inside, just in there. And you could get a double o-ring nozzle with two o-rings in, single o-ring nozzle, just one o-ring in, and that just sits on there like that, and that pushes your BB in and puts the air out through. And there's your compression test. Now this will be your tappet plate that pulls the nozzle back and forth. As you can see, it sits just on there like that. So when your gear, your sector gear turns, you can get it back on there. So when your sector gears turn and pulls this back, it also pulls this back and forth. So that'll go be forward, and it'll pull it back and release this because it has a spring on. So that'll release, and you have the tension on the spring, and it'll pull it forward, and then the gear again will grab this and pull it back. Now there's your trigger. Now there's a MOSFET in this. This is a Perrin hybrid MOSFET. You could have a cheaper AEG, like this was a cheaper one. This is an aftermarket part, the Perrin. So you'll just have a normal trigger block with a trolley, and it doesn't do nothing, only just puts power to the motor from the battery and all that. But you can just fit one of these, simple enough to do. Now that's basically it, apart from your bearings, and some will come with bushings. There's no ball bearing inside it, it's just a solid bushing. So that's basically inside the gearbox and all you kind of need to know on it. You see your wiring. Now just on the outside, you will have your selector plate, and this will have a spring in there, and it'll have a little arm on here for your safety. But with the parent has a safety built into it already, so once you flick your switch to safe, the parent will keep it in safe. Now that's basically inside the gearbox and names of the parts. So if you're new, it's just an idea for you there, what you'd be looking for in parts. Now this is a V2 gearbox and these are all V2 parts. So if you have a V3, V7 kind of stuff like that, that's what you want to be looking for on the description if you're searching for parts on websites. That's it. Just put it back together the same way you took it apart. Alright, till the next one. Have fun.